Hello, welcome to our channel, or welcome back to this channel. This channel is meant to be a support and a guidance and an encouragement to you in your practice of the Dhamma. We're using the booklet entitled Kamatthana. It's available as an ebook and for you to download from this channel. It's entitled, as I mentioned, Kamatthana, and we will be using it in this series of talks, going page by page, elaborating and hoping to clarify the teachings in this book, primarily which have been drawn directly from the Pali Canon, or from great 20th century teachers in the forest monk tradition, Ajahn Mun, Mahabhuwa, Ajahn Chah, and others. We're on page 2 today. It's entitled Basic Buddhism. Quote, "To conquer oneself is the greatest victory." So right away, we're told something that we don't often hear in the secular world. That is, the greatest effort and the greatest victory would be to look inside of ourselves instead of defining our successes in worldly terms. So the nice thing about Lord Buddha's teaching is he doesn't just tell us what he thinks is appropriate and wise. He always gives us some explanations, some details, some definitions, so we won't be confused or misled by the teaching. So what does conquer oneself mean? It says, well, avoid evil and do good. So every religion, I have a degree in religious studies, and all the major religions preach and teach that we should avoid evil and we should do good. However, very often the details of what that means, or a clear definition of what that means, a technique, a practice, is not given. It's more like a command. Do this and don't do that. And if you do the wrong thing, you're going to suffer. And if you do the right thing, you won't. But in Buddha's case, he says something that's quite unique. He says, purify the mind. So we can understand that if we're going to conquer ourselves, we're going to have to purify the mind. And obviously, a purified mind would have no interest in doing evil or doing wrong or misbehaving in ways that cause oneself to suffer or the suffering of others. And it would naturally, law of nature, want to be as good and wholesome and healthy and kind and loving, etc., as possible. So now, number 1, under Purify the Mind, gives these instructions. Don't slander, criticize, blame, or judge others. In other words, learn to be forgiving. So, right speech is a critical component. It's number 3 on the Eightfold Path of a purified mind. And gossiping and telling stories that are ugly and unnecessary, possibly even untrue stories are heard from others, which constitutes a kind of gossip, is not the behavior of a purified mind. Now, it's quite normal for us to criticize things that we don't like, and often that's includes people. We can criticize a political party or a government, someone's lifestyle, somebody's value system. But it's suggested here that's not helpful to purify the mind, because it takes us outside of our own mind. It keeps us locked into or interested in or attached to what's going on in the world. And purifying the mind requires that we gradually withdraw our fascination, our interest, our addiction to activities that are going on in the world, because we need our full attention. We need all of the energy and effort that we can muster to look within ourselves. Vipassana meditation means insight meditation. So obviously, by definition, it means looking within and withdrawing our attention and fascination from the world around us. Blaming and judging are ways that keep us unhappy, dissatisfied, frustrated, angry. Those qualities do not constitute a purified mind. There's no question that we may have been wronged or have the feeling that we have been wronged. We've been betrayed. Somebody has broken a trust with us, injured us in some way. Blaming them, hating them, being upset with them, judging that they're in the wrong and we're in the right, does not help us develop this purified mind. So it also doesn't help them. Being angry at them and judging them and condemning them and slandering them, criticizing them, in some ways the only victim of that behavior is ourself. When the Buddha said the person who drinks poison and thinks someone else will suffer is delusional, is a madman, a mad person. So if we have inflamed our own mind with these criticisms and complaints, we are the one who drank the poison, and we are the one who's going to suffer from it. Number 2 says, don't harm oneself or harm or kill other living beings. So we must begin to define what harm oneself means. And I've already just talked about getting angry and blaming and criticizing and judging and condemning. That's certainly one form of harming oneself. The kinds of food we eat may be a harm to ourselves. The kinds of drugs or drinks that we use may be a form of harming oneself. The anger that is required for us to kill animals, any kind of animal, is also a form that starts as harm to oneself, because it fails to appreciate, to even consider that the life of this other being, whether it's a mosquito or a rat, a mouse, a poison snake, a bed bug, the life to that being is precious to them, just as ours usually is precious to us. As we begin to purify the mind, this becomes more and more evident to us, and the idea of ending another being's life just does not arise in consciousness. So we start by recognizing ways we are harming ourselves, and then we expand into the world a commitment to not harm others, including with the way we talk about others and the way we talk to others. Number 3, practice good moral conduct and virtuous conduct. So there's only 5 of these kind of vows that a practicing Buddhist can take. Don't kill, don't steal, don't commit sexual misconduct, use right speech, not wrong speech. There's 4 definitions of right speech we'll be covering later. And don't use intoxicants because we lose control of the mind when we are intoxicated. It's not that the alcohol or the drug itself is evil or bad or wrong. The point is, once we're under its influence, there's no way we can maintain a level of self-control that is required if we're sincere about purifying the mind. So I've mentioned the 5 ways to have good moral and virtuous conduct. The first one is not to kill. The second one is not to take what does not belong to us or take something the owner does not wish for us to have. We'll cover the others in a later discourse. Number 4, practice the right measure. What is appropriate regarding the 4 requisites of daily living, which are food, shelter, clothing, and the right to medical attention. So this is advice that counters our tendency to be greedy, greedier than we need to be satisfied with our life when the basics have been met, when we have enough food, enough clothing, adequate shelter, and hopefully the availability of medical attention when we need it. Recently, a famous person said, there's no such thing as too much greed. Well, that's not the teaching of the Buddha. The Buddha might be considered one of the first true environmentalists. He was a minimalist. Although once a prince living as wealthy and luxurious life that would have been available in his day, he traded that for living the life of a mendicant, a wandering monk. So he's not telling us that's something we have to do. He's just saying, listen, let's downsize. Let's become more of a minimalist. Let's see the difference between wanting and craving and hungering for something versus what is needed day by day. So taking the right measure is eat enough to meet the need of staying healthy. Have enough clothes to stay warm or cool. Have a roof over your head sufficient to protect from the elements. And in other ways, including how much we talk, how much we watch TV, how much we go out into the world to be entertained, we can start examining these behaviors when we're sincere about purifying the mind. It goes on to say, don't indulge or exceed what is needed. Well, now we've heard this before. There's a difference between what we need and what we want. So as we become more and more sincere about our practice, we are self-governing, and we begin to watch our cravings, and we begin to have more mastery over the craving, whereas typically the craving is our master, and we just want another helping of ice cream or something delicious, more sensual pleasures of one kind or another, etc. So there's a commitment to mindfulness that helps us be our own regulator. Nobody has to tell us to stop talking so much or stop watching so much on TV or playing on our phones or other ways in which we lose self-awareness by surrendering to being entertained by things in the world. The next sentence says, when you have little, use little, and when you have much, use little. So this is an early proclamation for recycling, reusing, renewing, and we can apply this behavior to various levels and aspects of our daily life. We may drive the car less. We may consume less gasoline. We may consume a little less food. We may find that we don't need so many apps on our phone, or we don't need to pay so much every month for the apps that provide television entertainment. There are so many ways that we can find to simplify our life, which is the intention of which is to give us more time to practice meditation and mindfulness. The most common complaint people have about meditation is they don't have time. And now we're saying, well, let's see if we could budget our time a little differently. Maybe there are some actions, activities, interests, etc., that are keeping us unnecessarily busy. So let's continue. Number 5, seek seclusion as a way to purify the mind. There is a 3-part definition of seclusion later in the booklet. We'll talk more about it then. But it means what I've just said, to withdraw more and more of our need, withdraw our attention from activities that are taking us away from self-awareness, taking us away from being self-governing. And society is designed, it has the design to keep us curious and interested in everything but our own mind. So we can be astronomers and be curious about the beginning of the universe or everything in outer space. We can be interested in atoms and molecules and the tiniest invisible forms of existence, and all the hobbies and sports, television, etc., can keep us addicted, involved. And one way to start breaking that addiction is to find places where things are quieter. It might just be a chair in our bedroom where we really can withdraw from the living room and the television or some activities that are ever present in our life. And we can start by doing that. If we're lucky, we might be able to walk to a park or along a riverbank, get out into nature alone, not with someone else. We may want to feed the birds or the ducks or the squirrels. We may want to make some kind of connection with the organic world around us, that living by definition in harmony with the laws of nature. And by doing so, we slow down the mind, make it better able to observe itself and better able to come into harmony with the laws of nature. And finally, number 6, learn to meditate and to practice constant mindfulness. And this does require an environment where you're not constantly distracted. There should be, hopefully there's a place you can find where the noise levels are at a minimum, in particular the sound of the human voice. You may be able to ask roommates or family members to turn down the volume of television or some other distraction. Maybe they'll even turn it off for you to practice meditation, hopefully up to 1 hour at a time. Without being able to concentrate, we cannot practice mindfulness at the level necessary to make really radical changes in the way the mind works. So these two are like two sides of a coin. The more able we are to concentrate, that's what meditation means, concentration, the better we are able to use that concentration as a tool to watch what the mind is doing, because the mind is doing something all the time, whether you like it or not. A recent social study said the mind has at least 10,000 thoughts a day. I think that's not an accurate count. I would double or triple that. And these thoughts arise and pass away uninvited, unwelcome. They come into consciousness whether you want them there or not. And if you don't notice them by using a mindfulness practice, you will constantly, or we will constantly, be overwhelmed by the thoughts and the emotions associated with those thoughts. And the practice of mindfulness and meditation is essential in order for us to become the master of our own mind. That's sufficient for today. The next discourse will be on the following 8 on this page. So I hope you'll get some benefit from these talks. If you think they may be helpful to others, perhaps you would consider subscribing or mentioning it to friends or people of like-mindedness with you, so that as much of this Dhamma can be shared with those seeking it in the world. Thanks for your time.